The bobbin cover is clear and has a magnifier, so you can always easily see how much bobbin thread is on the bobbin. The machine also has an upper and lower thread sensor, so it will warn you when your bobbin is running out. Brother bobbins are taller, so they hold more thread, and this means less frequent bobbin changes. Thread the needle quickly and easily using the automatic needle threader. So you simply follow the numbered guides and then press the lever and it will shoot the thread through the eye of the needle. So now the needle is automatically threaded. The NV800E has a full color touchscreen and controls that are very easy to use and understand. The machine also has some built-in tutorials, so if, for example, you would like to know how to thread the machine, you simply touch the icon and scroll through the 17 pages of instructions. Likewise, if you'd like to know about any of the other functions, you would simply touch those and go through the tutorial. These are also explained in step-by-step detail in the training DVDs that I provide with the machine. The machine is also equipped with a really nice safety feature so that when you want to change needles, you simply touch the little icon for the safety feature and the foot will automatically be lowered on the machine. So now you can quite safely change the needle, because while it is in this mode, nothing will operate on the machine, so you won't be able to stitch through your finger by mistake. The NV800E has 138 built-in designs and they are split over the first 3 categories. You can simply select a design by touching the screen and then you can scroll through and view all of the designs that are built in on the machine. You can also view them in the embroidery design guide, where it shows you all the information about each and every design, along with how long it will take to embroider, as well as the color changes. The machine also has 11 built-in font styles, so you can simply select the category with the fonts and scroll through to select one of the 11 different styles. There are also 10 different frame shapes, so if we touch the category of the frame shapes, you'll see all 10 of the different styles there. Now you can choose one of them, and then each and every one of those 10 styles has 14 different stitch borders to choose from. So you can frame your embroideries by using any one of the frame shapes and then applying any one of the 14 different border styles to it. Now, besides the 138 designs that are built in on the machine, you can also import designs from a USB stick that is inserted into the side of the machine. So you can download designs onto your PC, transfer them to your USB stick, pop the stick into the machine, and then retrieve the data from the stick simply by touching the USB icon. So now the machine is reading all of the designs that are on that stick, so I can simply go ahead and just choose whichever one I would like to embroider and set it. Now, once you have imported a design, you can also save that design onto either the machine's memory or back to a USB stick. So if I save onto the machine's memory, I can then go back and retrieve it from the memory later, as opposed to retrieving it from the USB stick. So if I go back to my home screen and I go to my machine icon, you'll see that in the memory where I'd saved that design, there it is there. So it's a matter of simply retrieving it, and then I can go ahead and embroider it. Now I'm ready to choose a design to embroider, so I've decided to go with category 1, and I know that the design that I want is design number 46, so I just touch the arrow keys until I get to number 46. Now that I'm there, I'm going to select design 46, and I'll just simply say set. Now there is a whole lot of editing that I can do to this design, but for this short video I want to just show you how you choose a design and how you embroider it, and then in the next little video clip we'll discuss all of the editing options. Once I've decided that that is the one that I'm settling on and that I'm not going to edit it, I simply say edit end. So now I'm ready to attach my frame to my machine and start embroidering. Now that I've settled on a design, I've placed my fabric inside the frame and I've made a tiny little mark where I would like to start my embroidery. So now it's a matter of just taking the frame and sliding this part of the frame into the embroidery arm. So we just make sure the little lever is up, slip the frame in under the needle, and then we're simply going to slide the frame in till it clicks in and lock it in place. Now that this frame is locked in place on the machine has a sensor in the embroidery arm that will tell the machine which size frame is actually on the machine. So if I've chosen a design that is too large for this frame, the machine will warn me, in which case I will then just change to a larger frame. Now that my frame is in place, I've slipped a piece of stabilizer in underneath my work. All of this is explained in detail in the training videos though. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I want to move the machine so that it is lined up with the starting point where I want it for my design. So I go back to my embroidery screen here, and you'll see that there are a number of little arrows. So what I want to do is I need the machine to move down slightly so that the needle is above my starting point. So I simply use the little arrows and I move it until the needle is right above my starting point. It also needs to come across just a little bit to the left, and now that I'm happy that the needle is going to drop down onto my starting point, so my design will be in the correct position on my fabric. Now another nice feature that this machine has is this little feature here, which is called the mapping function. So what that will do is it will show me exactly how big of an area the design that I have chosen will fill up on my piece of fabric. So I'm going to be armed with a marking pencil, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch that little icon, and then I'm going to touch it over there, and as the machine stops I just make little marks on my fabric, and then it will move back to the starting point. So there I have a mark there, there, and there. So I can see that that square area is where my design will fit into on my piece of fabric. Once I'm done with that, I simply say OK, and then I'm back to my embroidery screen. Now just before we start embroidery, I just want to show you that up at the top of your screen you will see that there is a little picture of the different size frames that the machine recommends that this design would fit into. It also gives you the height and the width. It also allows you to zoom in and view the design in any one of the frames that the machine has recommended. So for example, if I've got the very large frame on the machine, that is how it's going to look inside the frame. I can also zoom in if I like. Then the other thing down at the bottom here is at this stage, if I want to save this design, I can actually save it either onto my USB stick or onto the machine itself. But now I'm ready just to go and embroider. So I'm going to touch the embroidery icon, and that's going to take me to the embroidery screen. Now I have already put my color number 1 onto the machine, and you'll see here it lists the colors that the machine is going to require for this design. So color number 1 is sky blue, and it shows you which part of the design it's going to be embroidering. It will also tell you how many stitches are in the design, as well as how many minutes it's going to take to embroider, as well as how many color changes. So there's listed the color changes. So I'm going to start off with sky blue. That will take approximately 3 minutes, then 5, then 1, and which totals 8. Now this machine embroiders at 850 stitches per minute, so it's really fast. You'll also see that the machine will cut its threads at the end of each color change, so that's an automatic function. Then if you should encounter a power failure or something going wrong in the middle of the design and the machine has no power to it, so it switches off, the machine has a built-in memory. So when the power is resumed, the machine will ask you if it can go back to the part of the design that it had been busy embroidering. So you won't have to go back and try and find where the machine had stopped. It will automatically go there for you. The machine also has upper thread sensors as well as lower thread sensors. So if the thread on top should break while you are busy embroidering, then it's simple enough just to look at the message that the machine will give you to tell you that the upper thread is broken. But by the time it's broken, it's normally skipped about 2 or 3 stitches. So all you need to do is click on that little icon and then go back 2 or 3 stitches, and you'll be able to see where in the design you have to go to by using that little icon there. Now that I'm ready to start my embroidery, and I have my upper thread threaded, my bobbin in, my fabric in place, and I've moved the machine into position, all I need to do now is press the start stop button. However, you may have noticed that throughout this process this little light has remained red, and that means when it's red it's not going to work. So now I can press it and just see what the problem is, and the machine will tell me use the presser foot lifter button to lower the presser foot. So I simply say OK, and I lower the presser foot. So this is the button that we use to lower the presser foot with, and you'll see the light will go green. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the start stop button, and the machine is going to start embroidery. Now because I'd used the automatic needle threader, this little thread has been shot through the eye of the needle, and it's the perfect length for the machine to pull through to the back of the work where it knots it off. So it knots off at the beginning and it knots off at the end of a color change so that the thread doesn't pull undone. So I'm going to press start and allow the machine to start embroidery. So now that it's finished with the first color, it has now cut its thread, so it's easy enough for me to just remove that thread, replace it with the next color, and continue my embroidery. Now that the machine has completed its embroidery and cut the threads, all I need to do is lift the lever, slide the frame out, and there is my beautiful embroidery. Now, because the machine cuts the threads and pulls them through to the back and secures them with the bobbin, you'll see that everything is neatly secured at the back, so the top of the design is absolutely neat and beautiful. You might also be able to see my little marks that I'd made when I was doing the mapping, and you'll be able to see that the design fills that area. So the mapping function is really a nice function to have on your machine. You may also have noticed that I didn't use the colors that the machine recommended. The machine will recommend because it reads the information from the design, but I chose to change the colors, and that is something that you can do too. Now we're going to have a look at some of the editing that the machine can do. So we need to first of all select a design and set it, and then along the top row you'll be able to see that we can zoom in, and you can zoom in right up to 300% if you need to. The machine also tells you which size frames that design will fit into, and only the very smallest one is grayed out, which means that I can use any of the other 3 size frames. It also tells me how large the design is in millimeters, and if you need to change that to inches, you can go into the machine settings and change that. Then if you want to have a look at what it looks like in any of the hoops or frames, you can then go and select the one that you want, and you can even zoom in if you like. Then the other thing that we can do to this design is we can move it. Now we can move it either by just selecting it with our finger and dragging and dropping, or if we want to be more precise, we can move it by clicking the move icon. So I could put the design back in the center of the frame. I could move it to the left, I could move it to the right. I could move it diagonally up to the left, diagonally up to the right, and I can move it wherever I want it, but I'm going to pop it back in the center. The other thing that we can do is we can resize. Now we have options. We can either make our design smaller but in proportion, or larger but in proportion. So if I wanted to, for example, make it larger but in proportion, you'll see that the height and the width change simultaneously. However, if I decide that I just want to make my design taller, but I don't want to make it wider, then I would select that option there. So now only the height will change and the width will remain constant. Likewise, if I want to make it narrower or wider, I could choose either of those 2 icons. So if I made it wider, you'll see only the width changes, but the height remains constant. So this is particularly helpful when you're working with fonts, because often you get a name that needs to fit into a certain area, but you would like to make it a little bit bigger by making it look a bit taller, so you can then use these tools here to help you achieve that. The next thing that we can do is we can rotate our design. So if I click on rotate, I can rotate either to the left or to the right. So I can go 1 degree at a time, 10 degrees at a time, or 90 degrees. So if I wanted to flip it on its side, I touch 90. Then if I wanted to be even more rotated, I can continue either in multiples of 10 or 1 at a time. If I want to reset, I just touch the reset button. The other thing that we can do is change colors in our design. So we can go to the thread table, and you'll see that the first color is carmine, which is a pink color, but if I wanted to change those flowers from pink to a different color, I can scroll through 4 pages of options. So say for example I wanted to make them yellow, then I just touch the yellow and you'll see it's changed it to that deep gold yellow. Then if I wanted to go to the end and change that blue ribbon, I just click on my reels until I get to the blue ribbon part, which is displayed there on the screen, and then I can change that to a different color as well. So I can scroll through and I can perhaps make it a lighter green perhaps. So we just touch on that and it will change the color for us. So once you are then happy with that, you just say OK, and if this is something you want to save, you can then save it either onto your machine or onto a USB stick. The next thing that we can do is we can mirror image. So it's going to flip the flower sideways, so you can mirror image it. Now I've just set it back to where it was. Then you'll see that these two icons are grayed out. That is because those only apply to fonts and text. If you want to delete the design, you can click delete. Now we can also go and add to this design. So we can either add text, a design from the USB stick, a design from the machine, or one of the built-in designs. So if I decided that I wanted to add another design, I just select the one that I want, and then I can just drag and drop it wherever I want it to be. And if I want to move it, resize it, rotate it, change colors, mirror image it, I can do all of those things to it. Now once you're happy with your design, then you would simply go to edit end, and now you are in the embroidery screen, and once you are there, you click one further to take you to your color changes. So the machine will then start embroidering and it will follow that sequence there. It tells you how long it's going to take, how many stitches there are, as well as how many color changes there are. The NV800 also has a range of beautiful big monograms that are built in on the machine. And here is an example of the A that I embroidered out. Now we're going to take a look at working with the fonts. So I click on the fonts and I can choose from any one of the 11 built-in fonts. I'm just going to go with the first basic one so that I can show you all the editing options. Now you'll see that I can choose to have either uppercase or lowercase, so they are all built in. So if I scroll through with my little arrow, I eventually get to the lowercase, and there's also a space, so that if you would like to put a name with a surname, then you can include a space. If you would like to add numbers or special characters, they are all built in on the machine. Then you also have special characters for the different languages. I want to go back to just spelling a word, so I'm going to go to my uppercase. So now I can simply just select the ones that I want. So if I want to do an A, I select the A, but now I need to choose whether I want a large, a medium, or a small. You'll see the sizes displayed over there. So I've decided that I'm going to go with medium, and I'm going to just put in a B, a C, a D, an E, and an F. Now I'm happy with that. If I wasn't happy, then I could simply just touch the delete button and delete letter by letter. I can also use the little arrow above my finger if I want to add a line of text in below the line that I currently have. So I would then be able to type another row of text below the A, B, C, D, E, F if I wanted to, but for this example I'm going to keep it simple, and we're only going to have one line of text. Now that I'm happy with my text, I'm going to press Set so that I can explore my other font editing options. Let's look at changing density settings. Now this is wonderful because if you are working on a t-shirt type fabric, you can always decrease the density a little bit so that there are less stitches. But then if you're working on, say for example, thick toweling, you can increase the density a little bit. And you'll see that the default setting has a black block around it, so you know what the normal default setting is. Then the other thing that we can do is we can now edit these fonts. Now there are lots of things that we can do as far as editing the fonts go. Now as far as editing the fonts go, you can change these into multicolors. So if we look at multicolor, once again it takes us to our multicolor color chart or color table. So that is where you can scroll through as well and just change each of those letters to an individual color if you want. If we go back to font edit, you'll also see that there is the array tool. Now the array tool will either set the letters in a straight line like they are there, but if I want them on a curve, on an outside curve, then I touch that icon. If I want them on an inside curve, I touch that icon. Now if I want the curve to be tighter, then I can tighten it up until it almost forms a circle if I like. If you want it more relaxed, then you can spread it out a little bit. The other thing that you can do is put the letters on an angular line. Now that can also be manipulated by touching that little icon there. So if you hold that down and you want to have your letters one under the other, if you hold it down for long enough, it arranges them all so that they line up one under the other. So that is how you use your array tool. So I'm just going to put it back onto a straight line again, and then we're going to go and look at the other options. If you want to change your lettering from the one font to another, you can by touching that little icon there, because that takes you back to the main menu and it will change them all back to another font that you choose. Then the other thing that you can do is you can spread your lettering out. So if you want to spread them out and make them a little bit further apart, or if you want to bring them closer together, you can do all of that in that option there. Then if you want to cut your letters apart, say for example I wanted my A to be separate from the rest of the letters, I can do that. So it's now cut them apart, so I say OK. Now if we have a look, I'm going to just go back and move these so you can see the A is by itself. So I'll just say OK to that. Now if I want to go and select that A, I just click on select and it selects the A for me, and now I can go and I can make the A a lot larger. I can also go and move it, so I can move it up a little bit. I can rotate it, so I can rotate it a little bit so it's lying a little bit at an angle. There are all sorts of things that I can do. I can change its color, I can go and change the type of font. So it's completely customizable using all your editing functions. So if I go back to edit my fonts, you'll see that we have now used all of our options. Now we're going to take a look at using the fonts and combining them with a frame. You could also combine any of the designs with a frame and fonts, but I'm just going to show you how to use those two together for now. So we're going to go and choose a font. Then I'm going to type in the letters that I want, but I want them to be medium. So I'll do an A, a B and a C, and I say set. Now if I want to change those colors, I can go to the color table and I can make them pink. So we say OK. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to add something. I don't want to add a design, although I could, and I could add a design from the machine or from the USB stick by clicking that icon there. But I want to add one of the frames that are built in. Now there are 10 different frames to choose from. So say for example I wanted to do a circle. Now I have options here as well, because for each circle, if I scroll through, you'll see there are 14 different options as far as a style goes. So I'm going to choose number 11, and then I'm going to say set. Now it just so happens that my circle is big enough for my font. However, if I select the font and I had made the font a lot larger and it was going outside of the circle, then what I would do is I just go and I select the circle and then I resize the circle. So everything is completely customizable and editable. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that my circle is in the middle, so I touch that and then I go to select and I select my fonts, and then I also want to make sure that they are in the center, so I touch the center. So now I know everything is centered. I can go to edit end and I can embroider that. So I'm going to embroider that just so that you can see the result. But before I embroider it, I'm going to go back to the editing section because I want to change that to yellow, and just say OK, edit end and embroidery. So I'll show you the embroidery result once it's done. Now my frame and my lettering have finished embroidering. So this is the finished result. So I had embroidered my pink lettering with a round frame, and I'd chosen to stitch the round frame with that style border.